Welcome to this video explaining the options for displaying event functions on the web. Functions are useful for tracking any subgroup of registrants. These could be meetings or breakout sessions within a larger event, or special needs or requests, such as food choices or dietary restrictions. For each function within ClearVantage, there are several options for controlling the web display of the function. These include determining whether it shows up on the web at all, whether its price is displayed, whether its time is displayed, whether its time is used in checking for time conflicts, what kind of selection registrants can make, as well as options for grouping and sorting the functions. The remainder of this video will cover each of these options in turn. We will first demonstrate the on-web and fee-based options. We are now looking at the function notebook for the networking breakfast function at our annual conference event. The web options are listed at the bottom of the notebook in the section titled Web Settings. To begin with, checking the on-web checkbox is what causes the function to be displayed on the web. We can then move to the member dashboard to see this on the web. We will click in to register for an event, and here we will select our annual conference. We will then step through the registration process to get to the point where we can select a price and view the functions. And as we can see here, our networking breakfast is now listed on the web. However, since attendees will be charged to attend this function, we want to display the fee. Back in ClearVantage, then, we will check the box to indicate this function is fee-based. The web will now display the appropriate price based on whether the person registering is a member or not. As we see on the web, this causes the member price of $10 to be displayed. Next, we will look at the ability to hide the function time on the web. So far, we have been displaying the time of our breakfast on the web. We might decide to not display the time for the first event of the day, however, since attendees already know the conference starts at 8 a.m. and it is an informal breakfast. To do this, we return to ClearVantage. In the function notebook, we will check the box to exclude the time display of the function. Returning to the web, when we look at the registration form, we will see that the function time is no longer displayed. Another useful feature is the ability to prevent registrants from selecting functions that have a time conflict. By default, this is turned on, but it can be turned off for specific functions. In this example, we have added a second function. In addition to our networking breakfast, which runs from 8 to 10, we have some vendor demos taking place from 9 to 12. By default, registrants will not be able to select both functions because they overlap. The registration form will prevent this and will inform them of the time conflict. However, we want participants to be able to wander in and out of the vendor demos throughout the morning. So in ClearVantage, we will check the box to exclude the vendor demos from time conflict checking. Now, registrants will be able to select both functions. We can see this on the web. Next, we will look at changing the selection type of the function. These are the selection type options. If no selection type is specified, the default is checkbox, allowing registrants to select or deselect as many functions as they wish. The radio button type limits them to one selection within a group, such as for casting a vote. We will look at groups in a few minutes. The input field selection type allows them to enter a quantity for the function, such as how many tickets they are purchasing. This quantity is used in calculating their total cost for the function. Last, the display selection type just displays information on the registration form without allowing any selection at all. Currently, our functions do not have a selection type, so they are checkboxes, and registrants can choose one, both, or neither. If we change the selection type to radio, registrants will be limited to choosing only one function on the registration form. Next, we'll add a new function for a Bring a Friend luncheon, for which we want participants to RSVP and tell us how many people to expect. We will use the input field selection type to capture this information. We'll also add a note in the title to make sure they know to enter this during registration. Back on the web now, we can see that our registrant can include an RSVP for 3 people to the luncheon. Lastly, let's use the display selection type to display some information on the form. In this case, many of our members are used to using the garage side entrance from past events, but it will be closed for repairs during the morning. We can add this information in the function title and set the selection type to display. Now the registration form will include this note for registrants to be aware of. As we see here, the registration form now displays the note about the parking garage. Next, we will look at grouping and sorting. Available options are start and end date and time, as well as 2 user customizable fields, the function level and function type. These are drop-down fields on the function notebook, and the choices in the drop-down can be populated using the lookups reference table. Your system administrator can help with this. Please note that if the function grouping field is not available on your event notebook, you can work with your role administrator to have it added. Back to our annual conference. We have now added functions for the second day of our event. We would like these to appear on the web, grouped by day. To do this, we will move to the Profile tab of the Event Notebook and open the Function Grouping field. Here, we will add function start date to our grouping, and then we will move it up so that functions are grouped and sorted first by date and then by time. As a result, on the web, we will see that functions are now grouped under Wednesday and Thursday. Next, let's take a look at using one of the customizable groupings. We will use this to separate the daily events at our conference from some new functions that we've added to represent optional selections. On the event profile, we will add the function type grouping. We will move it to the top of the list so that it is grouped first by type. Then, we will go back to our functions, and here we see our 3 new optional selections: a donation, a tote bag, and a request for volunteers. When we open the function notebook for the donation, we see that we have selected the conf options as the function type. Now, rather than click through all of these functions to assign a type, we did that behind the scenes of the video, but we can see here in the list of functions that each function has been assigned a type. Returning to the online registration form, we can now see that the functions will be grouped into the conference events and the conference options. Lastly, let's revisit the use of radio buttons with grouping. Radio buttons allow a registrant to make only one selection within a group. We have now added 3 functions to allow registrants to vote for their preference for an evening meal to be held during the week. For each voting function, we set the type to be vote, and we set the selection type to be radio. We can see this in the function notebook. With these settings in place, participants have the ability to cast a vote, but only one vote within the group, and we can see this on the web. Casting a vote within this group would not affect radio buttons in other groups. In this video, we have demonstrated how to use the basic web display options for event functions. Beyond these options, if you have specific needs or ideas, work with your Euclid analyst to determine the best approach. The registration form is highly configurable. For example, it is possible to add a free text field to a function, such as to allow registrants to indicate a golf foursome preference, or to display continuing education units for functions, so that registrants can decide which to sign up for. The examples on this slide are descriptive of past configurations. Each configuration meets specific business needs, however, and will require additional hours to implement. Work with your Euclid analyst as needed. Thank you for watching this video on the web display options for event functions. For more information, review the events guide available on the support site or contact us.